We got Dan from Arcus Power on today, all the way down from Calgary, as we've otherwise known as cold Texas. And so Dan and I were just talking here. We got our energy tech night in a couple weeks up in Calgary. And so I'm excited to get up there. Dan, thanks for being on.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, man. So tell me, what is Arcus? Dan was laughing because he came in here. I was like, hey, look, dude, I don't know anything about you. I don't know anything about your company. Said I take zero preparation coming into here. It's just a genuine conversation. So give me the lowdown on what Arcus is and what you guys do.
Absolutely. Arcus is an energy tech company founded by myself back in 2017. And, I could say in the last 3 years, we've saved our large power consumers about $250 million and helped them manage about 100,000 tons of CO2 abatement as well, while using our technology to help them with decision-making process around how they can better manage their energy costs tied to their operations, and improve their operating margins while doing so at the same time.
Yeah.
We operate across North America. We are past the startup mode and into growth mode with a proven technology to support all parts of the commodity value chain associated with power generation and consumption.
Yeah.
Through to consumption. And some of our largest customers are in the oil and gas sector. Coming from Alberta, is the energy hub of Canada. Canada is in the top 5 energy producing economies in the world, and it's in our culture and our history, and it's much aligned with what we see here in Texas. And you Texas size the opportunity and the value that we've been able to deliver to date. At that $250 million, it measures well into the billions of dollars in value that we can deliver to energy consumers here. And of course, oil and gas industry here plays a big part of that ecosystem in the state. And it's actually, when you think about where Arcus started, the idea came from a commodity cycle downturn in oil back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Prices collapsed again, and being in a boomer bust town tied to oil and gas, it's not unfamiliar to see massive layoffs hit the sector, and it's kind of a depressing time. And I was coming out of an energy trading role. I was actually happily in an energy trading role.
Yeah.
And I just saw the opportunity to provide a software-enabled solution to the industry to support managing their costs through troubled times. And now it's since expanded to be a predictive AI SaaS-enabled solution that is expanding across North America.
Very cool. So you're a trader, is your background.
And prior to that, I was working in oil and gas for a small E&P.
Okay.
I was prospecting for shallow gas.
Yeah.
And looking for the hole in the donut. And
I love it.
And I thought, back then, again, commodity cycles, life is good. I'm making money. I'm owning in the wells that I'm drilling. And then that all turned, and gas just continued to crater for, ever.
Yeah.
After that. And then I transitioned into energy trading, electricity trading. And that marked a future career. And the impetus for that was, I learned how to short natural gas to protect my neck when prices were collapsing. And it was one of the earlier things that I had done to help me transition my career.
Yeah, that's a kind of interesting, going from working at an E&P to trading electricity. How did you make that jump? Why did you make that jump? Kind of tell me about that a little bit, because I don't know anything about trading electricity. So it seems like that'd be a hard thing to go from E&P life to doing that.
Molecules and electrons and even calories it's all energy, right? And so
I love that you brought up calories, because there's a guy on Twitter the other day. Sorry to interrupt your story here, but there was a guy on Twitter, and essentially he was saying that there was all these studies that showed that more effort put out in workouts didn't burn more calories. I'm like, dude, this is a matter of energy, and what you're saying does not make sense. And so, it doesn't matter if it's an electron, a molecule, or a calorie. Energy is energy, right? So we'll have to do a deep dive kind of on that spectrum of intersections of different types of energy. But go ahead.
So they weren't so dissimilar, and understanding that it's a commodity and that it's volatile and that I've been engaged in that side of the market. And when I had the opportunity to move over to power, it was kind of a sink or swim opportunity. They say, well, if you're still here in 6 months, then it's probably working out. And I spent nearly a decade in the space, and
Cool.
And it was a very rewarding career. And it was all of those hours, and the seeing of, energy price prints across markets all over North America that really tuned my ability in forecasting and thinking about tariff and rate structures and how ultimately that information was going to benefit the consumer side of the market too. And now today we're looking at, what they refer to as the democratization of energy intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And meaning that these tools and solutions that we can now deliver in the market are of the same caliber and quality, or not dissimilar to what generator-owned utilities and power producers have at their availability to help with the decision-making process on how they maximize their portfolio. Now the consumers have the wherewithal to help make decisions around how they consume electricity.
Yeah.
And that's what's super cool. Oil and gas midstream is a part of the industry that we really support. And when you look at how they manage compression across their infrastructure, those electric motors are massive engines that have a lot of costs associated with them. Electricity is number 1 or 2 line item associated with operating those pieces of equipment. And when you look at how they can manage that dynamically, that's when the world gets really interesting.
Yeah.
So
do you guys fall in the category? Like, I've seen people trying to like put a kind of like a tagline, like energy management as a service or things of that nature. Like how do you like classify what you guys are doing?
So to some extent we are energy management as a service, but we're really a software enabled solution. Yeah. So you can use that signal right at the control layer to help with instant on-off signals and decision making. Yeah. So you can scale it across your system.
Yeah.
And the predictive component of what we do is something that provides a bridge where, now subject to your own specified parameters, you don't need to rely on somebody who's clipping a 30% coupon for providing a service to you.
Yeah.
You can say, I have the technology available to me that helps my variable component of my energy bill be managed through a software application.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've just really been able to hit like the turbo on it now with the new AI tools that are rolling out into the market.
Mm-hmm.
And as a company, we have been working and developing, neural nets and forecasting models for a decade.
Yeah.
And found and the underpinning of that and the foundation behind us right now is we own one of North America's largest power market databases.
Mm-hmm.
And so both the insights that we make in our models and the data itself is available to the end user. So
yeah. I mean, it's just a really cool time to be building with, you used the word democratization earlier, like the democratization of AI technology. And ever since large language models really came on the scene with GPT and being able to take some really cool tech off the shelf and then, package it together, fine tune it, deploy it within these systems. And so,
what do you use for AI tools today?
Shit, dude. All of them. I mean, if you look at like, what do I personally use? Top 2 tools that I use personally are going to be Perplexity and ChatGPT. But then if you look within our company, I mean, we've built our own retrieval augmented generation here with Collide AI and have deployed it at NOV and ProFrac. And if you look at it, like we wouldn't have been able to do that 3 years ago. We had the idea, but we wouldn't have been able to execute on it just because it was cost prohibitive. I don't have the resources to go compete with Amazon and Google and Meta for the best machine learning experts and data scientists out there. And so, and then if you look even internally, like in our workflows and in our data ingestion, I mean, using Claude and GPT for digesting information and helping us with the meta tagging. Like, it's just like crazy, like how much you can like right now stack just AI on top of each other within workflows. And so I just think that it's a cool time to be a builder building enterprise software like you guys are, and being able to take some really cool technology and inject it into what y'all are already doing.
So when we think about, AI at Arcus, there are three ways to think about it as a creator, which we build these forecast models and these really cool insights. Then there's as a user, and how do we use it to our own advantage? And even my quick hack at work now is I transcribe things through Otter when I'm taking my dog for a walk in the morning.
Yeah.
And it gets shipped out right away.
I love that.
And
I made a video on Twitter. So I was one of the first beta users for the GPT voice chat last year, and I'd go on 5 mile walks and I'd be talking to the bot. I just have my AirPods in, and I love it because I'll just dump out all my thoughts, talk to it, and then I'd have it generate a memo from that to send out to my investors or my team. And anyways, I posted that on Twitter, and the head of business development for OpenAI started following me from it. I was like, dude, this is like the biggest life hack. I can go get my walks in and get a workout in while talking to the AI. And so I love to hear that you're using it in a similar fashion.
But the thing where we're at today, though, with Arcus, is that our domain expertise and our data is required still, with all of these AI widgets and tools that are available to us. Without those other two ingredients, it's almost impossible to make the next iteration or the next best thing. Our model training time is, improved 100-fold. Our ability to scale and share our technology with others, same thing.
Yeah.
But without that market knowledge, that domain expertise, and the know-how of what we're building with the data behind it to scale. Yeah. It's all, you can't get there.
The only moats moving forward in AI are differentiated or proprietary data sets, knowledge bases, and having domain expertise to be able to fine tune and deploy models is super important. Trust me, I go like, that's my pitch in raising capital on Collide. So, and I believe that through and through. So it's awesome to hear that you guys have this like really large database of power market information, and you're able to layer AI on top of that. When you were trading, when did you get when was the inception for this idea? How did that come about?
So it was back when, we went through that downturn in oil and gas, and I was looking at battery storage economics at the same time. So without a substantial subsidy back in 2016, the battery economics didn't go around. It didn't make sense. And so in that, I was learning about the tariffs beyond just the energy market price volatility. And by the way, electricity market, it is the most volatile commodity of all the commodities. Mm-hmm. Even Bitcoin. Yeah. Right. And so to that end, you're looking at something that's very dynamic and has a lot of value if you can understand and measure the risk when the volatility is going to occur. So pairing that with the knowledge about the rates where users can avoid costs during high demand periods, and then overlaying the other ancillary service buckets and demand response opportunities, demand side management, types of market opportunities that they participate in, how they managed all of those in concert with one another and thought about the actual value to their operation rather than, getting a retail contract, the retailer flips a coupon, having a demand response aggregator, provide the demand side management, they get a coupon. There's a lot of people lining up to get paid to provide support. Yeah. But you're all solving the same problem. And if you can do it from a common source, then what you're really left with is the opportunity to provide superior value to you as the consumer. And that's what we strive to do when we engage with our customers every day at Arcus. And so that idea started back in 2016 when there was another oil downturn, and I was looking at, layoffs everywhere and realizing that, man, I have a enough of an understanding about forecasting these volatile periods in the energy market that I can deliver substantial savings to the oil and gas industry.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, the enabling technologies were there at the time because cloud had been accepted as a digital platform in which you could share information from organization to organization, and those barriers had been broken down.
There's still some out there that
sure, they're out there,
which is crazy to me. But
then they're kind of on the fringe, and there are still a lot of
crazy.
There's still a lot of analog hurdles to address too in the oil and gas industry.
But it is like crazy. I mean, like you're talking that was like 2016, but it was like 2018 when we started this podcast. Like using the cloud still wasn't like a thing in oil and gas, so that was like a big hurdle to come over.
Well, did you ever have to go and read the production data from an oil well on that wheel?
Yeah, on the charts. Yeah.
So, we've come a long way since then, right? And and I think that's the point though, that we now have a gateway to share the information. And then with my domain expertise and the amount of data that we process made it a good candidate for machine learning. I recognized that with the right data behind us, we had what we needed to deliver a software solution to the market. And so that was back in 2016, but it took some years just figuring out what the front end looked like and how to coordinate with the customers. And
it takes a long time to build shit. Like a lot of people don't realize
I bootstrapped it for the first several years.
That's awesome.
And through just being dedicated and doing what I said I was going to do.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. Like, I mean, bootstrapping to get a product built, I mean, it's hard. And, it takes just a lot of time and grit and effort. So what was the thought behind that? Did you want to, get kind of this MVP built? Did you bring on a team to help with it? What did those early days look like?
The early days were, it was thinking about what a partnership was going to look like. And then my partner saying, this isn't going to work, right? When we had just finished going through all of our legal documentation, and he had a life circumstance showed up that just made it not possible for him. Yeah. So I was sitting there with some friends and family money in my pocket that I'd already raised. And now I'd lost my sales guy. And I realized, well, okay, I'm going to have to take this on by myself. And so my first engagement, I remember going to the customer and sitting in their office next to their control room and describing to them how the energy cost management interface works. And he says, great, show it to me. And when I started drawing it on a whiteboard, I thought he was going to kick me out of his office because he was expecting to see a software demo. And, so we're going to build this together, and here's how. And I just outlined to him how I was going to take what he shared with me in mocking up an interface, turn it into a wireframe, refine it, and then give him his software beta.
Yeah.
And that's how we did it.
That's awesome.
And I worked with a small local dev shop, and we put all the pieces together, and that was the beginning of, our first beta, and our prototype went to market. Cool. And then we spent a couple of years refining and building a performance, record behind our forecasting and our capabilities that gave us some credibility in the market. Mm-hmm. And once we had that with a front end that people could get behind, then we were able to start some early sales.
Yeah.
And then when we figured out how to price it and how to sell it, that's when things really started to take off.
Yeah.
And then private equity partner came along.
Nice.
And then they helped us.
So y'all raised some institutional capital from private equity?
Yeah.
Cool. So for you, clients sound like oil and gas operators, and help me get some clarity on, you may have other clients outside of oil and gas operators, but let's focus on oil and gas operators first. Because I can only handle so many things at one time. But with oil and gas operators, if they deploy your software and your technology, are they essentially managing all of their assets across a lease to manage the power and electricity consumption to those? And especially I think in states like Texas, where, we have ancillary services, demand response, things like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Just give me some.
So this is great. Okay. So this is a great starting point. So you can look at an electrified oil field, and let's say they participate in, well, right now, even today, there's a potential 4CP event. So are you familiar with coincident peak periods?
No.
So
Tell me what a 4CP is.
Over the summer months in Texas, there's obviously high demand in the ERCOT system, and when that system peaks each month, a peak is set over the 4 summer months, and at that moment, the system operator goes and looks at your energy consumption, and they'll assess a tariff charge on your facility.
Okay.
So what they're seeking is the large consumers in these oil fields in general would look to say, well, we may look to avoid those high cost periods by turning down a portion of our operation, or if we have a battery or some other, behind the fence generation type, look to offset that cost by turning that on and reducing our consumption from the grid. So that's what they're doing. And then, so that plus whatever they're doing for demand response is the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so you're familiar with that program.
This is all good, but talk about it because one, you know more about this stuff than I do, so I want to hear about it. But two, I want to really dive into this.
So most simply put, there's a price at which any energy consumer is going to say, I'm going to be upside down on my operating margins. And at that moment in time, I may be okay with interrupting my operation and turning things down for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether that's through a coincident peak management or demand response or energy price volatility, it doesn't matter. It's what moment is that price so great and that risk so high that I'm prepared to interrupt my operation. And that's the decision that we're supporting when they're looking at their electrified oil fields and they're saying, well, how much of this operation can we turn down? And if you can turn down a few megawatts, it's worth a large amount of money to that operator.
Bitcoin miners do this a lot in ERCOT. Switch off, and a lot of them make more money in demand response than they do mining Bitcoin.
And that's a customer segment of ours as well, and so we're agnostic to the energy consumer type. Yeah. Because if whether you're in manufacturing,
doesn't matter if it's manufacturing or energy
refrigeration for sausage.
Yeah.
It's all the same. You are a large energy consumer and you have some flexibility, and we look at managing your cost associated with that.
Yeah.
In a holistic way, in a way that is tailored to your parameters.
Yeah.
And
because all of these are different. I mean, even if it's the same type of, if it's an E&P, oil and gas company, I mean, there's going to be high variance between those different companies, right, in their parameters. And so they'll all be unique in that respect.
So the really cool thing about this is this problem is not old. These market structures and these rates have existed for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's the enabling technology that exists today.
It's just
and the tools that exist today is why the opportunity is so strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we're at, is we are at the forefront of that transition right now. And I don't call it an energy transition. I call it an energy expansion.
Yeah.
And we see it every day. You cannot connect new loads in Texas today in many circumstances because there's not enough generation.
Mm-hmm.
And so how does Texas's economy expand when this is the situation we're faced with in the next 5 years?
Yeah. And I mean, you look at there's a couple things happening. One, the rise of high performance computing and AI GPU clusters and Bitcoin mining, the trend of onshoring manufacturing. I mean, demand's going up. We know that. Power generation is one thing. Really, bottlenecks at transmission, transmitting electrons to where they need to be. And so I see large opportunities for the rise of distributed energy resources, things of this nature. But what enables distributed energy resources is software and being able to balance all of this and, being able to balance, hey, do we have flexible, dispatchable load that can turn off? And so, it's been easy to like see this over the last couple of years where it's like, hey, we can build more generation, we can build more transmission, but it's software enabling the connection of all that to be able to manage it. And so it sounds like, that's the intersection that you guys are, I won't even say intersection, it's just kind of the alley that you guys are plowing down.
At the intersection of, of energy and technology is our potential to create capacity in these systems.
Mm-hmm.
And through developing technologies like Arcus is enabling the potential for better coordination and demand side management really lends itself to creating, more room on energy systems to add more load, to expand the economic potential of the region, to do these things and to do it in a cost-effective way so that the existing operators aren't going to end upside down on their own, manufacturing facilities. Yeah. These things are all super important right now. And the demand shock that we face with data centers rolling out, continued growth in the energy sector, it isn't going to be met by the addition of generation onto the grid right now. Mm-hmm. It won't be met fast enough for the demand shock that we've faced. So if we're not addressing this capacity challenge by creating efficiencies in these systems in the short term, the only thing that we're going to be faced with is rising costs.
Yeah.
And that's going to squeeze people on the margin out. And it's probably going to cause bigger problems like energy poverty and all sorts of crazy things are going to happen as a result of that. Yeah, the backbone of America becomes at stake when you realize somebody can no longer pay, their Austin electric bill, or they can't operate because their energy prices are too high and it's not sustainable.
Yeah. I don't think these conversations are mutually exclusive where it's like, hey, we need to add generation, but it's like we need to be more efficient in the system as well. It doesn't do anyone any good if we just invest all this CapEx into building new generation. And I mean, like you see this with like, CenterPoint here in Houston, energy rates are going up, reliability is going down. They spent all this CapEx and putting out these nat gas turbines out at substations.
Yeah.
They haven't even been turned on. They haven't been used. And it's like, that's like a perfect example. It's like you can put up all this CapEx spending more on power generation, but ultimately, if you're not looking at efficiency in the system, if you're not looking at, maintenance in the system, in CenterPoint's case, like it doesn't matter. Like your reliability goes down and people's energy prices go up, and that hurts.
You hit the nail on the head. If you are looking at efficiencies before you're looking at capital cost, you are looking at the problem in the right order. And if you're seeking to find those operational efficiencies before you're spending on new generation, I think you're looking at it with the right the next dollar spent in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, we have no choice today but to look at it that way, just because of the constraints we're faced with in power systems. And this is a global problem. And that you've nailed it exactly there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, there's just always a lot of debate and argument on Twitter about like, oh, we need more nat gas or we need more wind. And I'm just like, well, we actually need more efficiency, more transmission. And
it's both.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I was like, I don't think that it's like mutually exclusive or, that binary. I'm like, it's both, but you just look at current system and it's like, there's so much efficiency gain there, and we have to be efficient. So.
In Alberta, I think it was January 8th. So my home province, our electric system was faced with a generation shortfall, and we're in an emergency alert situation during the cold snap. One of the, it's a level of cold that, would be like the hottest day of the year here.
Yeah, it's cold. Yeah.
But think parkas.
Yeah.
They don't make them thick enough.
Yeah. Appreciate you level setting here for the Texas boy.
and in that scenario, the system operator was about to say, we're in a position where we're going to have rolling blackouts.
Yeah.
But what they did was, the emergency alert system in the province, which is like the Amber Alert system you have here,
yeah,
sent a signal out to the entire province asking people to shut off their large electrics. And you can see that drop on energy demand instantly. Within 20 minutes, several hundred megawatts was curtailed. And everybody, on Twitter, on social media was really, not unlike Texans who just kind of have this like, we got this attitude.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing happened there, and they were all very happy to participate in doing something that helped the system and helped avoid having to go through these rolling blackouts. Because if you're in that situation, or rolling brownouts, in that situation, bad things can happen. People's lives could be at risk, infrastructure can be at risk. It is a potentially dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And in doing so, what they really demonstrated was that what I think is essentially a 1 in 10 year event, that absent having that generation capacity available, the market itself was able to curtail without any real negative harm.
Yeah.
And the avoided cost to the system itself is probably near the tune of $1 billion.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So just to kind of, put a cherry on top of your point here about efficiency, it's to what extent do you need to build out the additional, capacity needs, now knowing that the consumer side of the market can play such a crucial role in addressing the energy challenges that we're faced with in the future.
Yeah. And especially like when you start looking at home solar and battery, Tesla and PG&E have a partnership out in California where people with Tesla battery walls can, PG&E will send them a notification. Hey, we're expecting peak demand this evening. We're going to charge your batteries at noon, and then we're going to draw electricity from them and pay you for that electricity. And, it's not like super meaningful, that program I have. I think it's like 20 megawatts or something like that when they get it, but still like it demonstrates, oh, this is pretty cool when you can see from a consumer side, if people have capacity in batteries, PG&E can charge them up and then pay them for that electricity. Because like your case, and like actually I see this with some of my energy friends in Austin, bitch about it all the time when they get a notification from who's the Austin the power company or municipal, whatever it is. But anyways, they'll send out a message and be like, hey, experiencing, peak demand, need you to, turn down your AC, cut off power. Like that doesn't really sit well with Texans. But I'm like, if you paid them, if you told them that you'll pay them, that would go a long ways.
There's a threshold. If it was a 1 in 10 year event, would it be acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But like in Texas, dude, we're getting those like every fucking week now. And so
yeah, that's a different challenge.
Yeah. I mean, like it's crazy, dude. Like I never had this wasn't a thing growing up where we'd have just losing power, brownouts, things of this nature. And now in Texas, I mean, this summer's been good, but like this summer in Houston's been very mild. Like last summer before last, obviously,
yes.
We've had Winter Storm Uri, which you probably look at as a Canadian and laugh at us because it's like not that cold, but
it wasn't that cold, but it was the lack of energy like available at that time when people's lives were at risk, and so to that point, I can understand.
Yeah, it was cold for us.
Yeah,
and so, anyways, it's just it's interesting dynamic, and especially like as you look at power generation that has come online in Texas, especially via wind. I mean, we've just put a ton of wind capacity online, and it's like if you overlaid like reliability on that same chart, it's like, hey, how come we've got more generation than ever, but reliability is going down? Why are electricity prices going up? And so, just coming back to like the efficiency thing, it's like at some point we need all this stuff working together and being able to manage it better. So, it's just, we could probably talk for fucking hours about that topic, but it's really a hot topic in Texas right now because people are really starting to pay attention. I'm talking people outside of energy are starting to pay attention because you start fucking with people's electricity going off. Like we've taken that for granted as Americans, having access to reliable electricity, and we're not used to it just being cut off multiple times.
Not just reliable, but it's thought of as a public good, right? And it should be affordable, readily available, and abundant.
Yeah.
And to move away from that, you know, isn't going to be well digested by anybody.
Yeah.
And so
And it shouldn't. It shouldn't be. I mean, look, energy fuels prosperity, and we need electricity to advance as a society and as a species. So people should be pissed off when they lose electricity. So, all right, Dan, if someone's listening to this and they work at an E&P and interested in what you guys are doing, where can they find you? What's the website?
www.arcuspower.com.
Cool.
They can find us on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Arcus Power Corp.
Cool.
Like and follow us, and they can reach out if they want to look at how they can manage their energy costs across the board.
Yeah. So if you're at an E&P or an energy company listening to this and interested in Arcus, we'll drop a link, arcuspower.com, in the show notes, and reach out to Dan and his team. Sounds like they're working on some really cool stuff. So Dan, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
It was a pleasure.
We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Please share it with a friend. See you next time.